went to a dinner party and had a sour beer and kind of went, oh my God, what is this? It blew my mind. I was like, I've never had anything like this before. So I had taken a picture of it and I went into one of the local liquor stores and said, hey, can I get this beer? And he said, yeah, it usually comes about once a year. We might get 6 bottles of it. They're $47 a bottle, and usually it's gone before noon. And I kind of went, oh. And at that point, I had no idea about this whole beer world, right? Guess I'll never have that beer again. Then went down a bit of a sour beer internet rabbit hole.
You guys made the decision that Vancouver Island needs another brewery.
Yeah, we did.
Welcome, Ian. I'm really excited about this podcast because Ian and I go way back, almost 20 years. I don't want to say that, but we used to play on the same hockey team well over a decade ago. I met him before he had any kids, before he had a business, and he has worked on my house when he had his own another business before he got into the business to consumer brewery space. And yeah, seeing him transition businesses was a great experience for me. Seeing him grow into becoming a father has been a interesting journey as I started that stage later in life. And yeah, really excited for this interview and to get an idea of how Ian does business on Vancouver Island. So starting off, Ian, tell us about your business. And then if you could tell us, where did you grow up and how did you end up doing business on Vancouver Island?
Oh, great. Thanks, Kael. So my business is Il Sauvage Brewing Company. We're in Rock Bay in Victoria. We brew all types of beer, but we specialize in sour and kind of funky beer. But all our beer is going to be unique. Even our lagers, right now we have a lager where we add jasmine, or we have a lager where we use nixtamalized corn, collaborating with other businesses around Victoria. I was born in Alberta, just outside Edmonton, a town called Drayton Valley. And then early in life moved to Invermere in the Kootenays, small town, pretty like hospitality based. I would say all my young years were either labor or hospitality or a little bit of both sort of thing. So working for the Ministry of Forests, working at golf courses, working at restaurants, moving cabinets, sort of those sort of things growing up until I left Invermere, traveled around the world for about a year and a half, and then went to Calgary to go to SAIT and did a diploma in nutrition. And that was a year and a half diploma with a 6-month co-op. And when I put in for my co-ops, I kind of put, it was like Canmore, Banff, and Victoria. And I was like, I'm going to ski. I grew up skiing, so I'm going to ski with this co-op, or I'm going to go out to the West Coast. So I headed out here, did my co-op with VHA around Victoria in various hospitals, and then got a job doing kitchen supervising, a little bit of menu planning, dietetics consultation sort of thing. Most of it was supervising the kitchen. I had about 8 months, and right there, VHA was going through a bit of a transition where they were privatizing their food services. I didn't really want to be part of that. So kind of saw the end of that and started looking for something new. Just at the time, a fellow I worked with his wife, and he'd just fallen, broken his arm, and he needed some help. And I started tiling with him about, 3 months of that, and realized that there was some pretty good money in renovations and buildings. So then just 15 years about, I was tiling and doing renovations and in the construction space of Vancouver Island. As I was doing that, I was realizing I was getting older and I was getting more sore, and I built that company. It kind of ebbed and flowed about how many staff I had, and I realized that my personal income didn't change whether I had more staff or less staff, because I spent my hourly wage didn't change. My hourly wage, I spent so much time putting out fires, fixing things with staff. I just never found the right staff, so I pared that down to me and one staff, and that worked pretty well, except I was only ever earning income if I was on the tools. Yeah. So around then, I went to a dinner party and had a sour beer and kind of went, oh my God, what is this? It blew my mind. I was like, I've never had anything like this before. So,
where do you think that sour beer was from? Was it a Vancouver Island based one?
No, I know the exact beer. It was a brewery, Brasserie Cantillon in Belgium. The beer was called Fofoon, and it's spontaneous barrel aged apricot sour. So it's kind of like, drank the right one, because it's kind of like one of those beers that, like, sour beer world. Oh, you have a Fofoon. I have a couple empty bottles here, and when the beer geeks come, they're like, oh, see that? So I had taken a picture of it, and I went into one of the local liquor stores and said, hey, can I get this beer? And he said, yeah, it usually comes about once a year. We might get 6 bottles of it. They're $47 a bottle. And usually it's gone before noon. And I kind of went, oh. And at that point, I had no idea about this whole beer world, right? Where how the fans of beer and whatnot. So I was like, oh, guess I'll never have that beer again. Kind of wrote it off. But then went down a bit of a sour beer internet rabbit hole. I had this, like, back of my mind interest in homebrewing, but never really got the kick of the pants. And I was like, well, I'm doing it. So I went and found some equipment on Marketplace, started brewing sour beer in my shed at home. And right at that time, a friend of mine who'd moved to Korea, him and I were roommates when I first moved to Victoria. He had just opened a brew pub in Busan, South Korea. And he was over there teaching English, and he'd opened like a cafe where he was getting the beer contract brewed, his recipes contract brewed. He was part of a home brew club in Busan. He would get his recipes contract brewed, and they would serve it at his pub. And the laws kind of changed a little bit at that time, and he was running into issues where, like, the brewery was like, he was the bottom of the totem pole. So he might get beer, he might not get beer, he might get beer that wasn't the beer he wanted, but he had to serve it because it was the beer he was getting. So him and a group decided to open up, I believe it was the first craft brewery in Busan. Right. It was sort of like brew pub style, and they had some pretty safe beers where they had a pale ale, an IPA, a saison, and a porter. And they did pizza, they had a kitchen, and they kind of churned that out.
Classic brew pub.
Totally. And there were some rules in South Korea where they needed to follow that vein of production. Just some sort of, same as all liquor laws, like archaic laws, like, oh, if you're going to do this, you have to do it like this. They had to serve off bright tanks, which is a very old German thing to do, whereas here we keg our beer and put it in kegs in the fridge. So they followed that, and it was good for me because he was brewing, and I was usually brewing at 10 o'clock at night in my shed, and then if I ran into an issue, I could get on Messenger and, hey, this fermentation isn't happening, this tastes funny, this tastes like this. And so him and I had about a year and a half of that back and forth, and he was home brewing like sour and wild beers, but never in his brewery was he making them. I think he made a Gosa, which is a German sour beer, but never to scale. And he was back taking a Cicerone course, which is like the equivalent to like sommelier. And him and I were having beer, and I said, hey, if you ever want to move back to Victoria and still open a brewery, I'm kind of thinking it might work. And he said, I was just going to ask you if you wanted to open a brewery. I want to move my family back to Victoria. So that's how it started. That was December of 2016, it would have been.
And is he still a partner?
Yeah, so Steph is still a partner. He's actually back in Korea right now. He took a year away, so he went with his family, moved back to Busan, so his kids could, be there with their grandparents and just have a bit of time. So he's not here currently, but he's still involved. He does our design. He's our head brewer still. We have a young guy, Richard, who's brewing for us, is doing great, but he always like a consultant sort of role. And it's kind of clicking along now.
Yeah, so you guys made the decision that Vancouver Island needs another brewery.
Yeah, we did. Everyone kind of rolled their eyes at us. Like, we had these visions of grandeur, right? Where we're like, oh, this is going to be great. And, we're lucky that we have a niche. We definitely have our fans of our beer, which is helping with us. During COVID, it was such a crazy time for breweries that we couldn't make enough beer. It was just going out the door, and we're making beer and packaging as fast as we can. Now we've kind of pivoted a little more to community growth, like being part of clubs, supporting clubs, just getting that, like, our name out there with our community rather than trying to go afar with our beer as much as we can.
But you do ship the beer over Vancouver Island and a little bit off Vancouver Island?
Yeah, so all over Vancouver Island, cans and kegs, all over Vancouver Island. Lower Mainland out to Chilliwack. As you get further away from the brewery, the demand kind of lessens, so it kind of works well that way in that those really long trips don't have to happen as many times often. And our beer can be available as far away as Manitoba. We ship every once in a while to Alberta through an Albertan. They import to Alberta, a broker. We basically palletize the beer here, and it just disappears, and then they handle all the sales and everything out there. So it's in Alberta through I think it's called the AGLS, Alberta Government Liquor Store Warehouse, and there's some sort of agreement. I'm not an expert on it, where Saskatchewan and Manitoba can pull from that for their private.
Oh, nice.
Stores. So it does appear every once in a while. Every once in a while, we'll get like a Instagram tag and Brandon, and I got this great sour beer. So that's kind of fun.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Good. And sour beers and flavored beers, like, are you the only one on Vancouver Island that is really focused on that? And what about nationally?
Yeah, that I would say for sure on Vancouver Island. Even like it kind of had a peak and it's coming down a little bit. So I would say that there's no one that makes as many varieties as us. Of course, like Phillips has a sour beer. They make a ton of it, but that's because they're huge, right? So I would say Vancouver Island, even in Vancouver, there's a couple producers. One Temporal, where that's specifically what he's doing. It's like barrel aging and doing some real cool funky stuff. Nationally, there's a great spot in Edmonton, Blind Enthusiasm. Ottawa has Small Pony Barrel Works. There's a couple other ones. But we are definitely known for our beer across Canada for sour beer.
Nice. So you were a bit of a trailblazer because you'd only had the one beer, and then you went down this rabbit hole and were able to import a few or have a few at that stage, or?
Well, I had the one, but then I was like, every time I went to the liquor store, I was like
looking for them
and trying them. And honestly, that time in BC, there were some really bad ones, and that's sort of where my mind went. I was like, oh, there's an opportunity here where if we can do this well, it seems like people are into it, so we can take advantage of that.
Yeah, interesting. So it's kind of like a new niche within a pretty mature market, because I remember when I started at university, I went and looked at all the brew pubs that were going bankrupt to say, oh, could I start a microbrewery and stuff? And there's all these cycles, and I think we're on a bit of a downward cycle when it comes to alcohol and beer and breweries, but you identified a niche.
Yeah, exactly. And that's true. Like, I was just at the Craft Brewers Conference last week, 2 weeks ago, and I think there's 26 breweries in BC that have shut down since the start of the year. So there are quite a few. It's not an easy road to plow right now, but it also, like everything, takes work, right? There's easy times and hard times, and right now is when you have to put your nose down, and get to it, right? Yeah. Cut costs and make sure you know where your money's going. And I mean, over the last year and a half, I even just identifying renewal subscriptions. They're like, oh, geez, I just spent $900 last year on whatever this piece of software was that we decided we needed at one point and no longer use. So, like things like that, just making sure your money's going the right way, I feel.
Yeah, good. Can we touch on what you like to do outside of your business and what you like most about being on the island and in Victoria?
Outside, so I do a lot of family. My family's pretty, the time takes up with them. So I'm married. I have 3 boys, 14, 12, and 9. They're pretty sports heavy, those boys. So my oldest is at a lacrosse academy. He plays for a lacrosse team. Outside of school, they play box lacrosse and field lacrosse. Also has a part of a winter box team as well. So he's on a couple teams. He's being on Vancouver Island. There's a lot of trips to Vancouver just because of population. So there's a Team BC Indigenous team as well that he's trying out for and hopefully wanting to make in 2 years. There's North American Indigenous Games is happening. So I think that'd be a pretty great experience for all. Well, the 2 are only old enough to be there. The 3rd one's not quite old enough yet. So, but being part of that as well. So yeah, a lot of family time, a lot of driving to practices and whatnot. My youngest is the last one left in hockey, so I coach his hockey team as well.
Yeah.
The house, I enjoy fixing up the house and getting out, hiking, enjoying Vancouver Island, everything it has to offer, picking mushrooms.
And you transitioned from not northern Canada, because Edmonton is about only halfway up the province, right. Much less, it's not Fort McMurray level or NWT, but you transitioned a little bit south and west and then west again, and sports seems to be a pretty big thing. We met playing hockey, and some of your social media, I've spent some time in your brewery, but I'm seeing a kind of a mix of sport and not sport within your business and your personal life.
Yeah, our social media is an interesting one because when we first started, my partner Stefan handled it all, and it was very clean, and you could go there to find out what beers were coming out, and the grid looked nice, and it had our labels and beer pictures, which worked for us really well. The aesthetic was really nice off the bat. Then I found we hit a bit of a plateau of followers, engagement, everything was going at. And I feel that at that point, I ended up taking over the social media because I felt that our followers were more interested in us than our product. Of course, they wanted to know what the products were, what were coming out, but the engagement was more the feeling you could get from being around us and what we were all about. And, it was a little more engaging to have a voice of the brewery, right?
So move away from product featuring to voice featuring.
Yeah, exactly. All the people that follow us, they knew our product. They knew like our quality of product. We knew what we're. So I think and we released so many new beers that people just started glazing over a little bit. So that whole hook thing with social media, where you're like, oh, and I find we needed just a little bit more energy and more like we didn't ever do any reels or videos or those sorts of things, and I tell you that was pretty hard to get into just over your own self consciousness and whatnot. But being able to express who we are a little bit more helped our engagement, and then we found our followers coming up again, and we were getting more engagement, more people wanting to figure out what we were all about.
Nice.
So yeah, in sport, I mean, I love hockey. I love the Oilers. I took so much heat for the first 15 years living on Vancouver Island from Canucks fans, so it feels pretty good to be an Oilers fan for the last 5 years, I guess. So yeah, just letting people know, and it's fun here, right? Like, we're a French-named brewery on the west coast of Canada, so that's a little different. I expressed my Oilers fandom, which rubbed some people the wrong way. We did a post, I think it would have been 2 years ago, where we kind of, I think we gave 10% off at the brewery if you wore Oilers gear in during their playoff run.
I remember that one.
And as soon as we did it, we actually lost our followers, went way down. Like it was like 100 people in 2 days were gone. And I was like, oh, maybe this was the wrong idea. I actually got a call from one of my accounts in Vancouver, and he's like, yeah, I just want to order beer. One of our regulars told me that he's never drinking here again if he sees my beer on tap. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on here? And the guy Rob, the manager of the bar, he said, good thing I like good beer better than I like hockey, right? Well, that's what it was, right in the Oilers Canucks series. That's what it was. I did it right in the Oilers Canucks series, so I hit a bit of a sore spot there. And but after that, it was like 2 days, and then almost immediately we saw the spike in followers too, where people were talking about it, the whole algorithm. Who knows how that works? But there was engagement on the comments. There was sharing happening. There was like, I'm never drinking your beer again, and I would make some silly comment towards it. So, yeah, it's fun. Hopefully, I mean, you're never going to be a millionaire, open a small brewery in Victoria, but hopefully you can have fun while earning a living is sort of my goal, right?
Yeah. Well, that's great. And it's interesting that during that run, I think there was a lot of tribalism around sports, and then you saw this last year, people talking more about nationalism and right. Edmonton's our shot, right? Let's be honest.
Well, not the way they're playing lately, so we'll see.
Yeah, and the Canucks got in a win last night, right? So there's all that, but that nationalism, taking that Quebec, and then recently, the Blue Jays have been on a tear. They're actually in the World Series for the first time in 32 years. So, what have you been doing around that?
So, honestly, when I had kids, I had a conversation, because I used to be like fantasy football and Sportsnet and everything and hockey, and I followed the Oilers and the Canucks, and just for fun, I'd watch a San Jose versus Philadelphia game, and I realized really quickly that I used to play golf 3 times a week. Once you have kids, that sort of dries up pretty quickly. So I made a very conscious effort that I was only going to follow one sport, and that was hockey. So honestly, I played baseball until I was about 12 years old, like the little league sort of age group, and then transitions to golf in the summer. But and I probably hadn't watched entire complete game for 20 years before the Blue Jays and the Yankees played their series. But even World Series, like I just didn't have the push to be interested in it, right? But with the Blue Jays playing so well, I started watching the highlights, and my kids like, we're watching the baseball game tonight, right? And I mean, they don't even own ball gloves. Like, baseball is not a sport that my kid, but they're interested in it, right? And why does this happen? Oh, how come he was allowed to run when that guy caught the ball? And like, and of course, I knew all the rules and how it's played, so I was able to explain it. Plus, like, my trivia brain and my knack for holding on to my wife's dismay. She's like, you know more about baseball than you know about the shopping list, and you haven't watched it in 20 years, right? So, but I'm interested, right? So, in September, we brewed. We decided to make a low alcohol IPA. Stefan, before he left, he was at another brewery. He was like, I had this like 3.8% IPA that was pretty good, actually. We should try something like that. So we've been working on it and tweaking it a little bit. Then we made it, and then we had to come up with a name for it. And it was serendipitous that the Blue Jays had just called up this young pitcher named Il Sauvage. And I'm like, he just needs a U in his name, and that'd be great. So we changed Trey, Trey, to Tres, and then Il Sauvage. So Yé's not really a French word. It is in like Quebec, so it translates in Quebecois to like he is very wild. So yeah, there we go. And we were able to promote it. We were able to brand it Blue Jays colors, borrow some font, and it's been a bit of it's been fun. You know, it's cool. What are you doing if you're not having fun, sort of thing.
And is he originally from Quebec, the pitcher? No,
I think he's from Pittsburgh or Michigan. He's American. Yeah, so
that's
it's he pitched for the Vancouver Canadians. So the beginning of the year this year, it's quite the story. Like, he started in like with the Canadians. So he went through 3 leagues in a year, and then started game one of the World Series. So it's
and won it.
And won it. Yeah.
Won it against the best team in baseball.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was kind of handy that it was so close, and we were able to latch onto it a little bit and get it out there. I mean, there were other issues with like the government strike and whatnot that has hampered our ability to actually get it out, because just registering the label and registering the beer, so it just hasn't been as smooth as a release as normally would do. But that's driving people in Victoria to the room. You know, ball game days, they're like, we got to get the beer to, especially game 1 of the World Series. People are coming in like, we need that. We need the Sauvage beer, right? So
that's great.
It's been fun.
Interesting. So I was at another large, the Canadian brew house, which is actually a steakhouse. They don't actually brew any beers and stuff. Yeah. And I was there with my kids. We bowled, and then the game started, and they blew the air horn, and my kids covered their ears, and like, we weren't quite there for the game and stuff. So your establishment is licensed. Do you guys serve kids there, and like, do you put the Blue Jays and the Oilers game on all the time?
No. So yes, we're licensed. We're allowed to have kids at the brewery. Supervised kids, of course. We have a food vendor outside, so we have burgers and fries outside, and they're here usually Thursday to Sunday. We have a TV. We don't always turn it on. When we started out, we really wanted to be this place for beer where people could come and like a community hub sort of thing. So we think a lot about that and everyone's comfort and enjoyment. Like if I go out with my wife and there's a TV in the corner of the bar, I situate it so I'm not looking at that TV, because I'll just be like this, like, oh, I'm watching darts or something, right? Like that's not why I'm there. So we didn't want that to happen. I mean, as a bar should be, we want to encourage people coming up, talking to each other, engaging in conversation, and overhearing something interesting. And that to me is what a bar should be. Beer is a great social lubricant. It allows people to kind of get out of their comfort zone, maybe talk to a stranger, and create. And actually, I find Victoria lacking in that space a little bit. Where when I first moved to Victoria, it's the only time in my life where I sat at a bar, started a conversation with someone, and kind of got like, why are you talking to me? And to me, like a bar like that, when you sit at a bar, that's a license to talk, right? You don't sit at a bar to edit your paper. You sit at the booth in the corner. So I want to encourage that. It's not to say we don't. If a group of people show up and they're like, "Hey, we want to watch the game," like for sure, we're turning it on. We're turning the music on. We're turning the sound on. We'll make it happen. But we won't play any Canucks games though, unless they're playing. That's good. It's kind of too. We have an upstairs mezzanine, so we can't. I mean, we've done it before where people are upstairs having a non-gamified time with music playing, and then downstairs we'll have two tables where they're all watching the game, sort of thing. So we try to just make people as comfortable as possible. That's the key to hospitality, right? Like you have to like it's almost uncomfortable is my goal. Like make yourself uncomfortable to make them as comfortable as possible. You know what I mean? So that's the goal.
Interesting. And, coming to Vancouver Island, I actually had a friend, he reached out, he said, I'm coming to Vancouver Island, what should I do there, right? And I provided him with a list. What percentage do you think of your local visitors who actually come to the location and actually become fans? Like what percentage of people are new, either on a beer tour or coming to Vancouver Island and just happen to find out about your brewery?
So beer tourism is a definite thing. We get a lot of, like, we're outside of downtown a little bit, so we get traffic from cruise ships, for example. But we're in a neighborhood where we won't just get someone walking down the street and happen to come into our brewery. Those people have done Google search. They've reviewed the 13 breweries in Victoria and went, oh, that one seems like something I'd be into. Like I said, all our beers are unique. We're in the 7 years almost we've been around. November 1st is our 7th anniversary, actually, this Saturday. So we've 340 different unique beers brewed here. So a lot of our regulars who come in once a week, once a month, once every 3 months, quite often the first thing out of their mouth is what's new. So we'll always have something new. We do have some consistent ones that we're dealing with that people always expect to see. But I would say, like, the number one selling craft beer style is IPA. We're probably brewing a new IPA every 6 weeks. and that rotates out. That's not to say you won't see an IPA that you really loved back on the menu again 3 months later, 6 weeks later. But we do try and change it up for people. And we'll have overlap where we might have 2 or 3, but we'll always have one. We'll always have a lager. We'll always have a stout. And then right now we probably have 7 or 8 sour sort of wild fermented beers. So that's what really catches people's eyes.
Cool. Very nice. It's interesting. As we're chatting, I just asked Perplexity or Comet which breweries to visit on Vancouver Island, and you definitely came up in their list of recommendations. Are you hearing from any of these tourists or people that they've been recommended by AI to visit your brewery?
I haven't. Mostly it's a Google search.
Yeah.
But that, I would say a lot of people, that's one and the same now, right? Like when you're using a search engine, you get that AI view at the very top. It probably is AI speaking a little bit,
Yeah.
Get away from it, right?
Interesting. And what is the demographics? I mean, we come from a perspective of a dad often, and you touched on your wife's questioning your knowledge about the grocery list. But what percentage? What are the demographics of female versus male customers, both visiting and actually consuming your beers?
So, funny story about when we first opened. There's a brewer up island in Nanaimo, and he was down when we very first opened, probably 8 months in. And him and I was behind the bar, and we were chatting. And Harley's kind of sitting there, and then he kind of stops and looks around. And he goes, "What the fuck's going on here?" And I went, "What? What are you talking about?" He goes, "We're the only guys in here." And there was a table off in the corner. A couple of gals were having it. But, I mean, the big obvious thing is we had like a stagette party that had come and gone upstairs. And there was like 15 women upstairs. He's like, if you polled every brewery owner in the world on what their like demographic was, none of them would say this. There's not a brewery in the world that has the split that is right here. And I think right now on our social media, we're about 52% female and 48% male, which is way different than anything else. I think that's a credit Stefan in the beginning with the look of our cans and our social media and how everything was like clean. Like, I'll show you a can. Like, it's this is the Il Sauvage beer, but like it's just clean and nice. At the time, a lot of labels were like, you'd have a hop vine and then an elephant with a elk head, and it would have whatever the name was, where it was very like, it was crazy. Like, sometimes you would go to the liquor store and it would get lost in this wall of graphic design. Everyone was trying to out-pop everyone when it just kind of all went together. And there was a couple, when we were first starting, Twin Sails over in Vancouver did it really well. It was just a white can with the name of the beer and an image. And every can was white. They were the same. And we're like, that pops out. So we kind of followed that, where it's just very simple, aesthetic. The requirements were the name of the beer and the style of beer. One of the things that I found hard when I first got in, you'd pick up a can and you'd be like, oh, this looks cool by the label. They got my attention. And then I would be turning it like, who makes this beer? What kind of beer is it? Like, there's this can. I can't see inside it, and it could be a stout. It could be a lager. Who knows? I don't know. So those were important to us. And two, quite often people come in and they say, I don't like beer. Do you have a cider on tap? And we always have a cider on tap. But I will say, have you ever had our beer? And, well, no, I don't like beer. And the beautiful thing about the tap room is, I've got 21 taps behind me, and our goal, we don't necessarily make beer for everyone, but we make a beer for everyone, right? So if you are at all, like you're here, you're looking for something to drink, you want to, it's a different thing if you're celiac or something like that. That's why we have our, cocktails or cider. But if there's no reason other than like the taste of beer that you're steering away from beer, that's my favorite customer. Because one, I've got they know they don't like beer, so I have this like audience that's like, here you go, and they go, oh wow, that raspberry sour, that tastes like raspberries. That's not beer. The amount of times in the last 7 years I've heard people, oh, that's not beer. And well, technically it is beer. It's just different, right? So, we make so many fruited beers, not necessarily just sour beers. Like we did something really neat with M&R Winery up in Comox. It started with Rathjen Cellars here in Victoria, and since they stopped operating, Mike Rathjen's brother Mike, our brother-in-law Mike owns a winery up in Cowichan, so I transitioned up with him, and we take his pressed pumice from his Pinot Noir grapes. So he's fermented them, he's pressed them. The next step is taking it out to the compost. And we take those grape skins, bring them down, put them in a fermenter, and we move our barrel-aged golden sour onto it. And the amount of flavor, aroma, and color that's still available from that makes this beautiful beer. We just won bronze at the BC Craft Brewer Awards with it, actually. And so we take that, and it's a quite sour beer. It's got like a little bit of acetic acid, so a little bit of vinegar notes in there. People that love it. The people that are like, oh, maybe dipping their toes into sour beer aren't quite there yet. But then what we do with that free fruit is we make the beer, we package it, and then we brew a saison, and we pump it onto that exact same fruit, and we brew another beer we call Dépensé, which is spent in French. And we make this saison, and still the color and flavor that comes through, and we're talking these things have been picked for a year at this point. They've sat in beer for 8 months, they've been drained, and now we're putting another beer in. And that beer, I probably messed up by putting in the wrong category, but it scored really high at BC Beer Awards too. It probably would have, I think, medaled if we'd put it we categorized it appropriately. So,
right category.
Yeah, but those are beers that if you're a red wine drinker, there's a couple benefits. Instead of drinking a 14% red wine, you're drinking a 5% beer, so you can not overconsume as easily. I often tout sour beer is like people always talk about wine pairings. Well, sour beer pairings are better in my mind because you have the acid of wine, you have the added benefit of carbonation to clean your palate. Like a heavy cheese, you have that nice interaction, and then you're ready for the next thing. It's also, as a maker, with wine, you're limited to your terroir and your grape varietal, and then how you produce it. With beer, like if we want a pairing that has coffee notes, we just put coffee in it. Yeah. If we want a pairing that something that has apricots, because there's a cheese that has apricots or a salad or whatever, we just put apricots in it. So there's a lot more room. We made beer with jalapeno peppers. We just made a beer, a Ghost is a German salad beer with salt and coriander in it. We just got 5 kilos of oysters from Gigi's Oysters up in Comox. And we made beer with oysters. So a lot of people are like, oh, how oystery is it? And honestly, it's not. It's just the saltiness, the brininess, and there's like a mineral aspect that came from the oysters that made a really pleasant sour beer, right? So limited by our imagination, really, with where we're going with
No, I love the mix of food and local production and stuff. So it's great. You're collaborating with businesses up and down the island. Kind of turning to that, are there one or two businesses that you've partnered with or as suppliers and stuff that you really respect and you want to give a shout out to on Vancouver Island?
Oh man, I feel like if I picked one, I'd be doing everyone else a disservice. So
just list them off. Give us three or four.
I mean, that's a pretty important part of me being a social person. It's one of the best things about this industry is being able to collaborate with other breweries. And man, if we're short a hop variety, we can call any of the other breweries in town and say, heck, we're brewing a beer right now where the yeast came from Small Gods out in Sydney, where we were short yeast, we couldn't get it, so I called up Johnny at Small Gods. I said, hey, do you have lager yeast? Oh yeah, it'll be ready on Friday. And I picked it up, right? And it's a pretty beautiful thing about this industry. Collaboration-wise, like especially lately, we've done quite a few. For example, our lager, our mainstay lager that we have quite is our maize lager. It's when we wanted to do a Mexican lager. There's a long, I'm not sure how much time you have, but a long story in my opinion about what Mexican lager is and isn't. What I wanted was a Vienna lager, because the first people to make beer in Mexico were Austrians. They came over, they wanted to make beer. They had an issue with North American barley. It has higher protein, so it was hazy. And to get that haze out, to lower the barley contribution, they started using corn to get those carbohydrates to make the beer. So our goal was a Vienna lager with corn, but being us who we are, we just didn't want to go and get like chit corn or whatever corn was available. So we approached a restaurant down on Fizz Garden, Chinatown, Maze Next Mall, and he makes in-house tortillas, and he nixtamalizes the corn and makes tortillas, which is a traditional way of making tortillas. And basically, they soak it in lime, and that allows the nutrients of the corn to come out. And I mean, I'm getting out of my depth of knowledge here a little bit, but there's some credit to different civilizations in Mexico. How they were able to succeed was because they'd realized this nixtamalization process, and they were actually allowed to get more nutrients out of that main staple of their diet. So they were bigger, stronger, and able to succeed more than people next to them. So I called Israel up and I said, hey, I want to make a beer and I want to use your corn. He was all on board. So, man, probably 3.5 years ago, we made that beer for the first time. And we sold it throughout the year. We'd make it a couple times a year. And then actually this January, he finally was able to get a liquor license at his little tortilla restaurant. And since then, that collaboration that happened 3.5 years ago, people are going to his restaurant, and now I'm getting calls from Liquor Source in Vancouver that said, hey, someone was at a restaurant and they had this beer of yours. I'm getting people walking through the door, oh, I just had your beer at this restaurant. It was really great. Can we get a 4-pack to go? So that collaboration, over 3 years, even we have another lager with next door to Maze is Don Me. It's a
I know Don Me's, yeah.
Stalwart in Victoria. Dim sum, if you're going for dim sum, people say, oh, you're going to Don Me, right? So it's right next door, and Rick from Don Me went, hey, Israel, how did you get a beer with your name on it? He goes, oh, you made it. So now we have a Don Me lager, and it's basically our goal there was Tsingtao, which is Chinese lager. We took our read of what that beer was, a grain bill from there and hops, and then we added jasmine. So we added jasmine tea, and it made this really fine, pale, clear lager, and I think it surprised him a little bit on how well it was going to do, because he was like, oh, I don't know, I'll take 10 flats. And then, you know, a week and a half later, as I was selling it out, he goes, oh, I need some more. And I'm like, well, I'm kind of sold out now. Like, so it was the test batch, and now we're able to make it again, and we're making that beer again today. So we have a beer right now with Fathom at the Hotel Grand Pacific. We're selling beer with them, and we did a collaboration beer with their head chef, Landon, and he wanted, they use a lot of forage products from Vancouver Island, and they have a very nautical theme to the whole restaurant. So we did sea buckthorn and lemon verbena pale ale. So he wanted a hazy pale ale. We added sea buckthorn and lemon verbena, and it's delicious. It's the citrusy. We dry hopped it with citra hops, citrusy pale ale. It's hazy. So they're serving that there, and we're able to serve it here and then sell the cans. It's a mutual marketing thing for people where they go, oh, what is Fathom? And we can put their website on the can. Oh, never even heard. I didn't even know there was this great restaurant, the Hotel Grand Pacific, right?
Yeah.
Doing another beer with Hank's, which is a restaurant in town. We collaborated with the Courtney Room. Field by Farms is a great farm out on the peninsula where they're growing and malting all their barley, all their wheat here on Vancouver Island. So it allows us to not ship everything over from Vancouver. We're pretty lucky in Canada, because like the best malt in the world is in Alberta and northern BC, and we're extremely lucky. But they're doing great things at Field 5. Other breweries, we've collaborated with Whistleboy and Small Gods, and Vancouver Island Brewery, and it's just really supportive environment. It's way different than construction. I came from construction, and it was like, yeah, I'm busy this weekend. Can I borrow your helper for some labor? No, that's not going to happen, right? Yeah. You might treat him. You might treat him too nice, and he'll never come back, or something like that.
Yeah, interesting collaborations, and one of the themes that has kind of come through in this pod is really the place and the people, right? Whether it's Korea, Mexico, Alberta, Quebec. You're really bringing it, a lot of the cultural aspects, the Indigenous community as well. You touched on with lacrosse and the games. So it's interesting. You're bringing that, but also sharing that in the community.
People quite often why we have this French name in Victoria. We have 3 questions. Number 1 is, how do you remember the taps? Because none of the taps at the tap room are labeled. Number 2 is, what is your logo? So in Il Sauvage, the I in Il has an accent circumflex above it. So it's a stylized I with the accent above it. We wanted that accent to be up front because it's unique. And then the name, we wanted 3 things. We wanted product, place, and people. And we figured if we get 2 of the 3, that would be good, but we were hoping for 3. So my partner, Stefan, he's born in Montreal, and his dad's French speaking. The guy's language, I don't know, he might speak 4 languages, 5, I don't know. So he speaks a lot. So we knew we wanted a French name, also to be unique here, just to step out from the 13 other breweries. Well, that's interesting. Why is that there? To create a story. We wanted people, so French being the people, the product, more so back then, less so now. The yeast and bacteria we're using to create the beer was wild yeast and wild bacteria. People were kind of like, oh, what is this Brettanomyces? And I would say it's not like the traditional of wild, we got it from outside and wrangled it. I would say it's more the demeanor of the East. So there's wild, Sauvage is wild. So that's product, that's the people, and then the place here on Vancouver Island being, it's the last thing before the Pacific Ocean, so it's pretty wild out here. So Wild Island, it fit well with all three of those things. We could see enough connection. They checked all the boxes for us. So yeah, that people and product and place definitely was right off the hop when we were thinking about it.
Nice. Yeah, I love how that brings it together. I mean, we've got clients all across the country. We got brewery clients and stuff, but if you can really bring in some of the Quebecois, the French speaking, but also the influences from that really make Canada great, which is, our Latin American, Mexico, and Asian influences. And you're doing that locally as well, right? You're not, I think, skipping out and importing everything from Mexico or another country. Right. You're bringing that kind of flavor and connecting with people locally on Vancouver Island and really bringing, some of that Quebecois, that indigenous roots that are quite strong on Vancouver Island and celebrating it. So love that.
We had this was pretty early on, and I had this group of people walk through the door, and there's maybe 15, and I started IDing, and everybody was underage except for like 2 people. And I said, "Why are you guys here?" And they were French, and they were I think, for some reason, I think they were still high school, and there was a couple just 19-year-olds.
Yeah.
And they came in and they said, "Oh, it was just a French name, so we thought we had to come and see what was going on here." So I served them sodas, and we had kombucha, and a couple had a beer, and off they went. Right. So.
Oh, good. Yeah. I love that. So where can people find you, and can you give us the correct spelling of Il Sauvage so we've got that for people looking for you on different platforms?
Yeah, so online we're pretty active on Instagram, so that's at Il Sauvage, so ILESAUVAGE. Our website's ilsauvage.com. You can email me, Ian at ilsauvage.com. We're in Victoria in Rock Bay, 2960 Bridge Street. We've got a 60-person room. Right now we're winter hours. We're open Wednesday to Sunday. We have pizzas available all the time and snacks, and then our food vendor outside, Bangers Burger Club. They're here Thursday to Sunday. That's about it.
Awesome.
I'm usually here, so you probably run into me if you stop by.
That's great.